Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our Elevate Your Business series. My name is Ken White. I am the Executive Director of the Maryland Black Chamber of Commerce. And thank you for, Eddie, thank you for a great series. This is number 6 out of 6. And look forward to getting you on the calendar to repeat this again soon. Please be on the lookout. We have a lot of additional good information or good webinars and seminars coming up. We have doing this off the top of my head. We have our business value proposition 2-part series coming up. We have a legal boot camp 2-part series coming up. We have a really intense, really great starting a business boot camp. And that's going to be really great. That's in person. Value proposition is in person. Boot camps in person. Legal boot camps in person and startup boot camps in person. And we have our annual meeting coming up on November 9th. And our keynote speaker will be Congressman Glenn Ivey. And we'll be giving awards to some of our great partners for the year. From the Governor's Office of Small Business, from Montgomery County's MBE County Council, and from, I say Montgomery County, that's Prince George's County, and Ash Shetty with the Office of Procurement for Montgomery County. So stay tuned, look out for additional information. With that, I'll turn it over to you, Eddie.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. So I just want to start by saying thanks to y'all for joining us for another presentation. And I just want to give you some time to really introduce yourselves. So if you have a business or a nonprofit that you would like to promote, feel free to put your hands up. And after you get called upon, just let us know your name, where you're calling from, the name of your business, and what you offer to the world. So who would like to go first? Let's see.
Come on, this is a marketing webinar, so you have to be willing to market yourself. Eddie, are you there? Eddie Peters, are you there?
Let's see.
How about Rebecca, are you there?
Okay.
So the people log in and not and walk away?
Okay.
So my name's Michelle. I can jump in. Can you repeat the questions?
We would just like you to introduce yourself. So just let us know your name, where you're calling from, the name of your business or nonprofit, and what you offer to the world.
Awesome. My name is Michelle Benton. I am in Silver Spring, Maryland. My business is Michelle Benton Voiceover. So I'm a voiceover artist that provides that service to businesses and nonprofits around the country. And that is my value proposition. I help everybody here and those who aren't here tell their stories to their audiences.
Fantastic. Nice to have you. Thanks for joining us. Okay, so who would like to go next? Who would like to introduce his or herself? Let us know your name, the name of your brand, where you're calling from, and what you offer. Who would like to go next? We have a really shy audience today. It seems.
Good afternoon. Okay, go ahead.
Good afternoon. My name is Walitha Jackson. I'm calling from Capitol Heights. I don't have a brand yet. We will be a new company. We will be Jackson Loving Care. We will be providing caregiving, personal services at our home.
Walitha, be on the lookout. Walitha, be on the lookout for our starting business boot camp on October 5th.
I am signed up. Thank you very much.
Good going.
Thanks for joining us. It's really nice to have you.
Crystal, I think Crystal was going to introduce herself.
Yes. Hi, everyone. My name is Crystal Reeves. I'm the CEO of Bridge Consulting Group. We are dedicated to providing comprehensive and innovative solutions in HR processing, attracting and retaining top talent, and retention and employee engagement.
Great, fantastic. Thanks for joining us. Really
Thank you.
nice to have
God,
you.
but we have something very interesting. Dee puts in the chat that she cannot come on camera or mic, but her name is Dee Robinson. She's calling from Dallas, Texas. I'm working to get my business started. It will focus on small business at admin support services. Great.
Thanks
All
for
the way out
joining
for
us.
Texas.
Thanks for joining us. Thanks for joining us. Let me see. And also to the people who made it here on time, we really appreciate you being on time. And we can't wait to hear you introduce yourselves. So who would like to go next? If you don't have a business or a nonprofit, you can just let us know what you do. So you may also have a job, or you might be a network marketer. Just let us know what you do. Who would like to go next? Okay, I see Jason B.
Hi, my name is Jason Brown. I started a business in Maryland, primarily focused on federal government contract, and I do IT, infrastructure, and cybersecurity. So thanks.
Great, thanks for joining us. Really nice to have you. All right, so let's just have a few more people and then we can dive right in. Who would like to go next? All right, I see Daryl Presley.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Daryl Presley, and I am the principal of Presley Media Group. We are a communications firm in the Lindenham Heights area where we protect, promote, and position companies, nonprofit organizations, political, business, and community leaders. We help you to have a focus on communications that helps to build, leverage, and sustain your brand and your personal brand and reputation. Presley Media Group. Thank you.
Great, fantastic. Thanks for joining us. Awesome. All right, so let's just have a couple more people. Anyone else? Don't be shy. Let me see. Anyone else? Let me see. Let us know your name, the name of your business, where you're calling from, and what you offer to the world. Anyone else? Let me see. Okay, let's just have one more person. Let me see. Anyone
Someone
else?
join. Maybe they'll go ahead.
Okay. Okay. If you would like to promote your business, feel free to put your hands up. Let us know.
I think Darlene's going to introduce herself, right?
Oh, okay,
Hi.
great.
I'm sorry. I was a little reluctant because I'm so tired. I've been up since I've been up all night actually. I
Oh,
submitted
my.
my first government proposal this afternoon. So I've been up since 7 o'clock yesterday morning. I received it late from someone and it was just a no-brainer to bid on it. So I was reluctant to come on camera, but hello. I
Oh,
am
and
Darlene.
congratulations on that. That's a big event. That's a big event.
Thank you. I am Darlene Petway. I'm the CEO of PMC Business Solutions. We're a management consulting firm specializing in government contracting. We provide acquisition support services, contract administration, program project management, and IT network help desk support to the federal government agencies and their commercial contractors. And I'm located in Waldorf, Maryland.
Oh, Waldorf.
Awesome.
Okay. That's good to know. Good. Okay, great.
Awesome. Awesome. Fantastic. So let's dive right in. Really nice to have you. So I just want to start by saying thanks to y'all for
Hold on.
joining.
Eddie's finally going to say something. Go ahead, Eddie Peters.
Oh, I see
Can
Eddie.
you
Okay.
can you hear me now?
Yeah, I've been calling your name for the last 10 minutes.
Yeah, man. I'm on my phone, so I couldn't get this mic to work at all. I apologize, but definitely I appreciate the opportunity to chime in. My name is Eddie Peters. I represent Legal Shield, and in a nutshell, we help protect and grow businesses by giving them the affordable access to the legal counsel that we need. You got to have the 3 C's, if you will, and that's access to capital, counsel, and counting, right, with the bookkeeping. And we're the counsel part, making sure that we better personal and financial decisions to help our business and grow. I also own Vocal Expressions, and I am a voiceover actor. I'm a voice actor. I do narration, book readings, singing, and so forth. So glad to be here.
So I
Great.
was hoping you said that because there's someone else who introduced themselves earlier, and she is also a voiceover person.
Oh, outstanding. And I'm Hagerstown, Maryland, by the way.
And I was going to pick on you, Eddie, because you come down to Prince George's, Montgomery County all the time. The one time I come up to your neighborhood, you didn't show up.
And that's just wrong, bro. No.
All right, Eddie, I guess I'll hand it back over to you.
All right, great. So yeah, and also feel free to put your information in the chat, and then we'll just dive right in. So I just want to start by saying thanks to y'all for joining us for our final presentation. And to those who don't know who I am, my name is Eddie Agassi, and I'm a branding expert, speaker, and founder of Apricot Branding. So at Apricot Branding, I help small to mid-sized business owners to really clarify their strategy, refine their design, and amplify their messaging so that way they could achieve bigger results in their marketing and sales efforts. So I'm going to go ahead and put my information in the chat as well in case you would like to connect. And I also work with the marketing committee of the Maryland Black Chamber of Commerce. As usual, I want to thank our leadership team as well as FSC First for really helping us to put this event together. So this is actually our final event of our Elevate Your Brand series. And I'm going to start by turning on my screen share, and then we're going to do a quick recap. So, fantastic. So in our first presentation, we talked about emotional branding, and it was all about building a brand that connects emotionally with customers and building a brand that people love and admire. And then in our second presentation, it was all about aligning your branding with your marketing. And it was all about gaining a much clearer understanding of the differences between branding and marketing, and really developing strategies on how we could really leverage the impact of our brands to drive bigger marketing results. And then in our third presentation, we talked about aligning your branding with your sales. And it was all about gaining a much deeper understanding of how customers think, so that way we could ensure that we're speaking to them in the right way. And then after that, we talked about uncovering your brand's uniqueness. And it was all about uncovering the unique value that our brands offer to the world. And really, how can we stand out in a highly competitive industry? And then in our fifth presentation, we talked about building brand trust and credibility. And it was all about really building that trust and building a brand that people know, like, and trust. And then today in our final presentation, we'll be talking about achieving brand clarity, gaining more clarity on your brand. So I've been really excited. I hope you have been as well. We're going to dive right in, and then we'll go into the Q&A. So in this presentation, we're going to talk about why it's so important to have brand clarity. We're going to talk about having a clear vision for the future. We're also going to talk about clarifying our objectives. We're going to talk about gaining more clarity on your target audience. We're going to talk about clarifying your messaging. And we'll also talk about clarifying our processes to drive bigger results. So let's dive in. So first, we need to understand, why is it so important to have brand clarity? Why is it so important to have a crystal clear brand? So what we know for certain is that our brains naturally prefer things that are much clearer and easier to understand. So think about your customers' everyday lives. We live in a really complex world with a lot of ambiguity, lots of complexity. So most people, they have a lot going on. So if you don't have a brand that's clear and easier for people to understand, you're naturally going to be pushing customers away. They're naturally going to avoid you because you're adding to the complexity in their lives. So just by having a brand that's much more simple, much clearer, and much easier to understand, you're naturally going to attract more people to your brand as well. So clarity is so important because our brains naturally prefer things that are much clearer and easier for us to understand. The second reason why clarity is so important is that if your brand is not clear, then what happens is that people will have their own false conclusions in their minds. So the way customers think is they develop all these false ideas based on what someone else said, based on what they saw in the media, or based on their past experiences. So if you're not really clear about how you want your brand to be perceived and what you're all about, then what happens is that your customers, they start to have these false assumptions based on their past experiences. And thirdly, another reason why it's so important to have clarity is that clarity is a key differentiator, because a lot of brands, a lot of businesses that are out there today, they have really complex messages. They have really complex websites with a lot of things going on. They have really complex marketing. They have really complex processes. So just by having a brand that's much clearer, much more simple, much more easy to understand, that would really allow your brand to stand out as even more different. So that's why it's so important to have brand clarity, is that by having a clear brand, you could attract more people, because people are attracted to things that are clearer and easier. And also, by having a clear brand, you can shape how customers perceive you as well. And you can also stand out from all the other options that may be not as clear. So that's why clarity is so important. So now we're going to talk about just having a clear vision for the future. So it's so important to really clarify your vision, to really take the time and really clarify your vision. So my question to you is, how's your industry changing? Because no matter what industry that you're in, I could tell that you have an industry that is changing really rapidly, because customers change, competitors change. There are so many changes happening outside that could also impact your industry. So when you're able to really take a moment to think about the ways in which your industry is changing, that would help you to really develop a much more informed decision for the vision that you're looking to take your brand in the future. And also, like, how's the world as a whole changing? So if we look at the pandemic, COVID-19 has proven that the world can drastically change overnight. So we're not really fortune tellers, so you can't really tell exactly what's going to happen in the future, but you can definitely have a rough idea of how the world is changing and how your industry is changing. And when you're able to really uncover these changes, you can make a much more informed decision, and you could really understand where your brand fits in with these changes and how your brand can really adapt to these changes. So my question to you is, how is your brand able to adapt to change? Do you have certain practices in place or systems in place that are allowing you to really prepare for the future? And also, what's your big vision for the future? So what impact do you want your brand to make? So your brand's vision is kind of like, if you're to look into the future, what's the ultimate impact that you're looking to make in your industry? What's the ultimate impact you're looking to make in the world? So it's so crucial to just take a moment and just think about, really craft a really clear vision for your brand based on how the world is changing, based on how your industry is changing. So do you currently have a vision statement? What's the vision? What's the big vision behind your brand? And how can we amplify that vision so that it's much more meaningful, much more impactful? So if you look on my screen right now, you see a quote: to provide access to the world's information in one click. So if you look at that vision statement, who do you think is the brand behind that vision statement? So based on the vision statement, you can probably have a rough idea of the brand who's behind that vision. And that's Google's vision statement. So Google, they envision a world in which people have access to information in one click. So all these things help to make the brand look much more impactful. And you don't have to be a multi-million-dollar brand to have a vision statement. You just need to have a really clear vision, and you have to be able to really think much more broadly about your brand and where it's heading. So my final question is, what's your vision statements? What's your brand's vision for the future? And what steps are you currently taking in that direction towards that vision? Because branding, it's also a cross-functional discipline, and it really impacts how your business or organization operates internally. So it's really crucial to be able to align your stakeholders around a common vision, so that way you can really improve performance inside your enterprise. So now we're going to talk about clarifying your objectives. So you might be thinking like, what's the difference between your vision and your objective? So the difference is your vision is more about how you see things in the future. It's kind of like looking into the future and like thinking about like the ultimate vision, right, that you have for the world, for your industry, for your customers, while your objectives are much more strategic. Your objectives are much more memorable and measurable as well. So by clarifying your objectives, that could be a huge leap in the right direction. So you could have short-term objectives. You could also have longer-term objectives. So it could be where you see your brand in the next 5 or 10 years. It could be where you see your brand next year. It could also just be the objective of your current marketing strategy. So just by having a clear objective, that's the first step you could take in the right direction. So it's all about really aligning your team and your stakeholders. And then that way together, we can come up with strategies that align with our objectives. So what are your current priorities? Do you currently have different priorities? So when you're able to really clarify what the priorities are, that way you could determine the best way to allocate your budget, the best way to allocate your time. So what's your hierarchy of objective? What are your current priorities? And also another thing about objectives is that they have to have some kind of timeline. So what's the time frame in which you're hoping to reach that objective? So these are all small steps we could take to really get to our ultimate goal. And also, how do you currently measure success inside your business or organization? So success doesn't only have to be monetary. There are many other ways for you to measure success. For example, success can also be in terms of customer satisfaction. It could be in terms of employee morale. So there's so many different ways that you can measure success. And it all starts with just clarifying our objectives. And then we can then determine like, what's the best way that we could measure the progress that we're making. Okay, so now let's talk about just having a clear target audience, So there's still so many businesses out there that they're not really clear about who their target audience is. And, many years ago, if you had a business, you could just target anyone. But nowadays, with so much competition, it's much easier to pick a strategic target audience that's most likely going to be interested in what you have to offer and really gaining a much better understanding of these people. So for example, what are your key challenges that your brand solves? What's the key problem that your target audience is experiencing that your business can solve? So the problem is the key. And once you're able to really uncover your underlying problems, that's the first step towards having a clear picture of your target audience. And also, like, what fears are they trying to avoid? So all customers have fears. So for example, it could be the fears that lead them to use your offer. It could also be the fears that prevents them from using your offer. So for example, let's say you were an insurance agent. The fears that attract customers to you would probably be the fear of the unknown, the fear of the inevitable. And they want a way to feel protected. They want to feel like their family is protected. And at the same time, a fear that might prevent them from taking on your offer might be because maybe they don't feel like you're going to get the best policy. Maybe they feel like there might be better options. So these are all examples of subliminal fears that customers may have that you could really address through your marketing, through your message. And also, like, what key questions and concerns might they have? So even in your own personal life, have you ever been to a store or a mall and you had all of these questions, but no one was there to answer you, so you just left? So that's what's going on with a lot of websites today, is that their customers, they're having certain questions and concerns, and their website isn't really addressing these questions. Their marketing isn't really addressing these concerns. So all these things cause friction in your overall sales processes. So by gaining a better picture of your target audience, we can then understand like what are the key questions and concerns that they may have that we can really address through our message. And also, what false assumptions or misconceptions might they have? So like I said earlier, a lot of customers, they tend to develop these false ideas, these false assumptions, these false misconceptions based on past experiences. So by really opening people's eyes to the truth, that would really allow you to really build more trust. So what false assumptions and ideas might customers have, and how can you really optimize your marketing so that it really addresses them? Okay, so now we're going to talk about clarifying our messaging. So the first step to really clarify your message, after you've gained a much better understanding of your audience, you have to really consider ways to really break the curse of knowledge. So to those who don't know what that means, the curse of knowledge refers to the idea that, especially in the B2B space, but we tend to use phrases that people don't understand. We tend to use concepts that people don't understand. We tend to use words that people don't understand. So it's all about how can we really break down our message so that it's much more simple, much clearer, much easier to understand. So by simplifying our message, we can drive bigger results in our marketing and sales efforts. So your customers, they shouldn't struggle with trying to understand what your business does, or they shouldn't struggle to understand what your offers are. All these things need to be simplified as much as we can. So it's similar to feeding a child, and we have to really break it down so that it's as simplified as possible. So even when you go to your website, like, do you currently have really large chunks of text? So if you have like really large chunks of text or really big words or phrases and concepts that people don't understand, all these things would really prevent people from reading your marketing copy. And also, according to the Harvard Business Review, 64% of consumers say that they prefer brands that share the same values. So it shows that brand values are key to brand loyalty, because the way customers think is they prefer brands that align with their personal values. So by really sharing your brand's values, that can be another way to really clarify and increase the impact of your messaging. So it's not just about the values, it's more about how the values are being expressed. So they really have to be expressed in a way that's more meaningful and more authentic. So do you currently have clearly stated core values inside your business? And what are you currently doing to really express these values so that people can really resonate with it? And also, a lot of times customers, they may get very skeptical based on their past experiences. Even in your own personal life, you may have come across an offer that seemed really compelling, but you just didn't believe it. It seemed too good to be true. So that's the same with brands. So anytime we have a claim that seems very bold, very attractive, we always need to provide proof. So what are we currently doing to really prove our claims so that we can really alleviate any concerns that people may have? So how can we really provide more proof to people so that it's much clearer, much more trustworthy? And also, the way people think is that we process information in different ways. So some customers, they're more visual, so they love to see things, while some customers, they prefer to read. So people, they process things in different ways. Some people are more tactile or more interactive. Some people want to participate. So by really conveying your messaging in different ways and engaging the senses in different ways, that could be another way to really clarify your message so that it makes much more sense to people and that it's much easier to understand, even for people who may have visual impairments. So what are you currently doing to really cater to your customers who may have visual impairments or auditory impairments? So by breaking the curse of knowledge and really simplifying our messaging, by really expressing our values in a transparent way, by really providing proof and really engaging all the different senses, all these things will help to make our messaging much clearer and much more easier for the brain to process. So how would you really describe what your brand does in one sentence or two sentences? How can you really simplify what your brand offers so that people understand? Okay, so next we're going to talk about clarifying our processes. So my question to you is, what steps are you currently taking to acquire new customers? Do you currently have some kind of plan or some kind of sales funnel or some kind of strategy as to how you're going to attract new customers? What are you currently doing, or do you just rely on luck? So ideally, there needs to be some kind of clear process. And the more processes we have, the better, because that way we can determine which process is most effective and how can we really optimize these processes to achieve bigger results in our marketing efforts. So my next question is, which processes have been most effective for you in the past? So what processes are you currently implementing to acquire new customers, and which processes have been most effective? These are all really crucial questions that will help to inform your overall marketing strategy. So it's all about processes. And then, because marketing is kind of like a science, so it's all about uncovering what's working and what's not working, and then optimizing as we go along. And also, if you look at it from your customer's point of view, what steps do your customers need to take? So what's the steps that they currently go through when you acquire new customers? How do you onboard them? So these are all ways for us to really uncover things that are preventing people from moving forward. So what steps do your customers need to take, and how can we really simplify all these processes so that it's much more streamlined, much more simple? So the steps that you take can be complex, but the steps that customers take, it needs to always be as simple as possible. So how can we really simplify the steps so that it's as easy as 1, 2, 3? Because if we're not communicating that the steps are simple, then what happens is that customers, they end up having these false ideas that your offer might be very overwhelming, because most people are very busy. So we need to really think of how can we really simplify our process so that it's much more simple as possible. And also, are the steps clearly understood? So are we really communicating the steps that customers have to take so that it's much easier? So even in your personal life, so have you ever gone to a website, for example, that just seemed really, that it didn't really make sense? It just seemed really annoying. So these are all things that prevent people from making a sale, because your customers, they're always being overwhelmed with complex processes. So how can we really simplify our processes and make it much more simple and easy to understand? So yeah. So my final question to you is, do you have a crystal clear brand? So here are the key takeaways from this presentation. So by having a clear vision, we can shape our futures. By setting clear objectives, we can really maintain our focus and really align our team and our stakeholders around that objective. And we can really measure the progress that we're making towards that objective. And by really having a clear target audience, we can really refine our messages and determine like the best ways that we can really reach them. And also, if we simplify our message, then more people would listen, because our brains love simplicity. And lastly, by really clarifying our processes, we could achieve bigger results in our marketing and sales efforts. So yeah, so I just want to say thanks to everyone for joining us for our final presentation. So let's dive into the Q&A. So if you have any questions, feel free to put your hands up, or if you have any comments, just let us know your thoughts. So who would like to go first?
Hi, I'm sorry. You went through this extremely fast, and it was so hard for me to write down everything and process.
Okay, that's fine. You would also receive a copy of it as well if you reach out. Yeah.
Okay, because you have the presentation, but then along with the basic questions over the presentation, you were asking some additional questions that were mind-provoking that I didn't get a chance to write down along with the notes so I missed.
Okay.
A lot of the information.
Okay, that's fine. So yeah, just feel free to send us a message, and then you can also receive a copy of the presentation as well. Yeah. Let me see. So who would like to go next?
I have a question about, I guess, branding and simplifying your brand.
Mhm.
What's the best approach or steps so no one's confused to, I guess, simplify your brand? Where do you actually start in your process?
Okay. So the first question is, so the way you would approach it for a new brand is different from an already existing brand. So for an already existing brand, for example, it's really crucial to really take the time to just look at all the different ways the customers interact with your brand, especially if you have some kind of sales process. Sometimes you might also reach out to customers just to get feedback on what their experience is like. And then this could also lead to lots of insights as to how we could really improve it and make it much more simple. But I would admit that it's not as easy as it sounds, because a lot of times they may not tell you that it's too complex. So you really have to just simplify it as much as you can and really try to put yourself in their shoes. And then when you are, by looking at it from their point of view, you can then determine ways that you could really simplify the process. So it could be the process of browsing your website, or it could be your sales process, things like that. So these are all opportunities that we could really optimize our businesses as well. Mhm.
Another thing with that, because I do want to simplify it, and I'm trying to use like market research, like, buzzwords, that sort of thing, as a way to simplify my brand,
Mhm.
because I'm starting a business and I don't want to, you know, have a full scope, but kind of simplifying it to not a niche, but um, I don't want it to go too far out. So
Yeah.
um, it's very hard to do, honestly, to simplify it, especially into two sentences.
Okay. Yeah. So ideally, so the way you would look at simplifying your brand would be, number one, simplifying your message. And then number two would be simplifying how your brand is visually presented. And then number three would be simplifying your processes. So these are like three key areas to look at. So when it comes to simplifying your message, so ideally, there should be a way to summarize what your brand does in a few sentences. I'd say 1 to 2, so that way, if you come across a prospect, you could easily communicate it in a way that's easy for him to process and understand. And then ideally, you would also have your longer messages as well, but ideally, it should always be broken down. So let's say you have like a large body of text that explains what your company does. So ideally, you would break it down into smaller chunks that are easier to digest. And that would really help to make it much more easy for people to understand and to process.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Thanks, bud.
Y'all hear me okay?
I'll see. I think Eddie Peters wants to say something, or
Yes, sir. Can you hear me okay?
yeah, I hear you fine. Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you. I'm driving, so I want to apologize in advance for any noise. But one thing I really appreciated when I was listening to you talk about prioritizing. I know, speaking for myself, when I started in my business, I'll just speak on the legal shield side of it. It was the thought that, hey, everybody needs what it is I have. You find out the hard way that that's not necessarily the case, especially if they don't have a clear understanding of exactly what it is you offer. So when I started prioritizing, it became both small businesses and families, and then that morphed also into employees and so forth. So what I wanted to ask is, when you are looking at prioritizing and you realize that your business and the services or products that you offer are multifaceted and really cover and can talk to a lot of different groups, you have any tips on how you would prioritize in the sense of who needs it the most, and just kind of breaking it down that way? Because sometimes I find myself just feeling like I'm kind of all over the place, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So like, for example, one way that you could approach it is like by looking at your past experience. So like if you look at your past customers, you would notice certain patterns, like certain kinds of people have been, perhaps most interested or like, more interested in what you have to offer. So all these things will determine like the opportunities for you to put more focus into.
Absolutely. Okay. And then the other thing I was going to say too, I was thinking about while you were answering, is in reference to being clear and concise. You were talking about in exactly what it is you offer, what the services are, what they can do. In other words, the problems that they solve. And that's such a big deal because we all are looking for referrals.
Yeah.
Right. And so if we're going to get a referral from someone, we at least want that person very, very simply to be able to tell someone else, hey, I met someone who was able to do this, this, and this for me, and maybe they can help you too. So I guess we want them to know just enough to be dangerous, right? So that your phone can ring or you can be given the referral and permission to call someone else. So most definitely I've been working on being very clear and concise in terms of what I do, but the way I've done that is by asking questions and finding out first what are the needs of the client as opposed to the other way around.
Yeah.
And what I found that is you ask the right questions, people will tell you what their needs are, and you simply can be that person, hopefully, that can find out what they need and show them how to get it.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So that's what successful, sales winners do differently is that they try to gain a better understanding of the customer's pain points or the customer or the prospect's goals, and then they align their offer with with the goals or the pain points of your target audience, and then that's how they're able to close it. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So
absolutely. Thank you. Appreciate that.
Sure. Yeah, and also this presentation will be on YouTube. So in case any of you missed it or found it too fast, you could always rewind it on YouTube where it would always be on the MBCC channel. Yeah.
Absolutely. I'll definitely be going back to it.
Sure.
Okay, perfect. Perfect.
Okay. And also so if you're asking people for referrals, then there has to be a way to tell them, how you want your business to be described. And if your business description is too long, then you're not going to be able to, you're going to be stuttering. So ideally, there should be a concise way to describe what your business does, so that way, and like the problem, especially the intronistic problem, so that way, if they come across a referral opportunity, you're going to be top of mind in that scenario. So who would like to go next? Does anyone have any questions or thoughts? Okay, so let me ask a question. So who would like to share the big vision of his or her business or organization? What's your big vision? Who would like to share what that is? Does anyone have a big vision behind his or her business?
I'll share.
Okay, so what's your vision statement? What's your vision, Tammy?
Okay, so I'm a nurse practitioner. My vision is to provide total care to all patients so that, they don't have to go to different providers. So I provide primary care, mental health care, health and wellness coaching, as well as, if people are suffering from any addiction issues, I also prescribe medications for that. So it's treating the whole person so that they don't have to deal with fragmented care, going to this doctor, this provider, that doctor, and people don't listen. So that when I did an analysis, one of the biggest reports was that people didn't feel heard by their healthcare provider. And so I make sure that I'm always intentional in letting them get off their chest what it is that they want to discuss. And so my vision is, which I feel like I'm already doing, is providing total care, whole person care to my patient population.
Fantastic. So yeah, you seem pretty passionate about what you do. So yeah, ideally, so you would have your vision, and then you would also have what we call your one-liner. So that's like a phrase in which you describe, what your company does. And then while the vision is much more inspiration, right? It's much more about you know, the impact that you're trying to make in the world, you know, or, you know, where, you know, the vision you have for the future. So all these things really help to make the brand, you know, much more meaningful. And it also helps to make it much more compelling as well. So.
Okay. So a one-liner would be something like whole person care or providing whole person care on those lines, you said?
Well, the best way to structure our one-liner, and the one-liner was actually made popular by a marketer named Don Miller. I want to give him credit, but the best way to structure your one-liner is to start with the problem. So you describe the problem in a few words, and then you describe what you do in a few words, and then you describe the outcome. So that would really help to make it much more impactful, you know, when you describe what you do.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so does anyone else have any other thoughts or questions, or let me see. Let me see. All right, so who would like to go next? You may also have a comment. Who would like to go next?
So there was a part, hi, this is Michelle again. There was a part of your presentation where you talked about proving your claims. And I'm wondering if you have suggestions on how businesses can do that, you know, seamlessly fold that into our daily marketing efforts.
Okay, yeah, absolutely. So it all depends on what the claim is. So this kind of ties in with our last presentation of building trust, because, you know, the way customers think is they tend to develop these false ideas. And, you know, also in your personal life, you may have come across a claim that you just didn't believe. So there are different ways to really prove your claims, even just by having like some kind of test, like a video testimonial. That could be a way to prove it, or to show like a before and after photo. These are all ways to really prove your claim, even just by providing some kind of guarantee that would help to alleviate any, you know, any ambiguity or any misconceptions that people may have as well. Yeah. So what have you done in the past to prove your claims? Anything? Who would like
As
to?
an artist, I don't know that I've ever really made any claims about
Okay.
the work. So I'm trying to envision what that would look like now.
Oh, okay, great. Yeah, definitely something to consider. Let me see.
It would be, for me, it would be past performance. So you would, you know, refer to other companies you've worked for and the performances that you had with them.
Yeah, absolutely. Even referrals, right? Referrals can be like a really powerful form of proof, because, you know, everyone would listen to a friend or a family member or a colleague, right? That would also really help to make your claims much more believable, especially if your claims are very bold. You know, it's always important to provide that proof so that it's much clearer.
So let me ask you a question. If the business that we're in, we provide an apparel service. So it's not more of a claim. It's not like the outcomes aren't wellness or anything like that, but it actually is a brand of, it's actually my children. They're actually moving through this apparel business, and they're putting themselves out there to say that, listen, you know, we've done this, like, this is where we started off with. And how they started was they didn't see themselves represented in like children's place and things like that. So they tried to come up with something that was for them and meant something to them. And so that's kind of the angle in which we've been pushing it, even though Children's Place is now trying to catch up and have, you know, representation now. Back then they didn't. And so this was the goal behind how they created and started this process of having something that is for them, you know, and for the people who represent that culture.
Okay. Yeah,
So I
yeah,
guess
absolutely.
so would that be the claim? Is that the path? Because I mean, I've been, you know, leading them with, you know, trying to have self-discovery for themselves. Like I'm listening in because of course they got homework and stuff like that. So I'm just trying to take in information and then transition that information to them so they can be able to use it when they're out there trying to market their business on their own.
Yeah, so apparel is like a completely different ball game because
No.
when people buy apparel, like the motivator to buy from a clothing brand, it's more about the meaning behind it, right? The meaning attached to the apparel. So when it comes to clarity for an apparel brand, it's more about being just having a clear message, being clear about your values and what your brand is all about, and really clarifying that message. And then there are also more functional aspects. So it could also be just clarifying like the purchase process. So maybe, perhaps, the process in which people buy the apparel on the website, there might be ways to really make it much more clear, much more simple. So for example, there are things like, like tap to pay. These are all ways to make, the purchasing process, much more simple. So when it comes to apparel, I would say it's more about clarifying the message and, just perhaps the process that customers go through, when they browse the website or, when they come across your advertisements, just really clarifying the message and just really breaking it down so that it's as simple as possible, and just having a way to really describe your brand in like a few words also.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Great. So who would like to go next? Who would like to go next? Let me see. Let's have a few more people. Anyone else or?
I do. I have a few questions. So, we got approved for our LLC today. For some reason, the state of Maryland is taking a little bit longer with approving LLCs than what they were previously. But we are starting a home health agency, a residential services agency. But my core emphasis inside of the company is to be a caregiver concierge. My job is to focus on preventing caregiver burnout for family caregivers and ladies in the industry. So I've been I'm not necessarily stuck. I think today's presentation gives me questions to go through to answer, to kind of give me a mental process on how to approach going into the industry, which was really needed. But which one? Trying to find which one of the notes because I was writing.
Okay.
So I guess moving forward, and I think it was the same question the gentleman had in the beginning, is clarifying my marketing objectives and really trying to figure out because my background is it's not complicated, but just trying to figure out which with all of the ideas that I have as far as catering to the caregivers, trying to figure out what's the breaking point to get into the market, and exactly what to lead with, because the objective clearly is to like I I don't want to reveal too many of my inside information of the company construct, but the goal is to objectively and subjectively handle caregivers to create a space, a healthy space for caregivers to come in and be able to vent and just discuss different things that they go through, and take all of the information that they're giving me and create something for them to be, so that we can actually help relieve the stress and cater to exactly what it is that they need before they reach a point of burnout. So, however, at the same time, that's good, but it becomes complicated because finances are needed on that side. And of course, we have the agency that's coming. But just trying to figure out that entry point to bring them in is kind of complicated, because I have like 4 or 5 different areas, and it's really, to me, it's complicated on how to choose which one first. So I don't know if I can necessarily have a question that I want to ask online. Will you be available to speak after this so that you can help me to process my thoughts?
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I offer free consult for 30 minutes in which we could just take some time to really, just look at where you currently are, in your business. So I'll put my information in the chat. So, feel free to schedule a consult, and also you can also subscribe for more tips as well to help you to really grow your brand.
Okay.
Chantel, I just wanted to say your business sounds like a nonprofit, so I don't know if I would look into that.
I don't necessarily want to create it as a nonprofit, because the goal, I'll be working the human resources side of the company. So we're still gonna, like, my emphasis goes into that a little bit more, but essentially the company is a home health agency, doing residential services. So while I'm still trying to create different spaces, the objective of the company is still to make money. So we'll still be moving forward doing a concierge there. I guess there it is. We'll still be moving forward doing a concierge service to caregivers to help relieve them in their day-to-day, work. So, we'll be providing a service, but also a support system to help relieve the stress.
Great,
Does that
great.
is that clear? Does that make sense?
Well, yeah, it seems like you have more simplifying to do, right? So I would say just put your info in the chat, and just feel free to schedule, on the website, and we could talk further about it as well.
Okay.
All right. So yeah, who would like to go? Anyone? Let's just have one more person if one more person wants to go, or we can end it here. Let me see. Anybody else? All right then. So yeah. So now we're at 5 o'clock, and I just want to say thanks to you all for joining us for my series. Feel free to visit the YouTube channel of the NBCC and to really get a replay on our different webinars as well. So I'm really grateful to you all for joining us. I know y'all are really busy, but thanks for really taking the time really to come and join us and really just learn more about elevating your brand. So if you have any other questions, feel free to reach out to me. I put my information in the chat, and feel free to visit the NBCC website as well to really learn more about how we could help you grow your business. All right, so it's been a pleasure, and we're going to end it right here. And I wish you all a great day. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.